Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Partings. And I thought this was a pretty enjoyable episode. My main enjoyment came from Elrond and Durin detailing everything kind of going on with the elves and the dwarves. The weakest kind of bit for me was Arondir and the people dealing with the whole Adar situation and everything, and then we got some kind of stuff going on with Nori and the stranger, and then of course, essentially weird Game of Thrones kind of shit going on in Numenor. It's really like I don't mind certain kind of politics and everything going on in Lord of the Rings, but I'm getting this weird kind of feeling where they're trying to do two things. Ape some kind of stuff from Lord of the Rings, not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones with how its political intrigue goes, and then the Wheel of Time with like, who is Sauron? And it's just like, alright, fine, whatever. Because they did that central kind of mystery thing with the Dragon Reborn with the Wheel of Time. It's just like, alright. Like, it's mainly how its execution was handled more than like, hey, we gotta figure out who the Dragon Reborn is. Because that's also a kind of central plot in the first book, so it makes sense. You know what I mean? Who do we want to do stuff with first? Let's hit the hobbits, and then the people at the Watchtower, and maybe Numenor, and then Elrond and them. So, we see that the Nori and the mysterious stranger and her family are getting through. Her friend starts pretty much singing a song and all that kind of stuff, getting into the kind of feel and like how they're traveling and how they kind of view their traveling and where they're kind of pretty much going and all that. And we see that they're going through this part of the forest at one point that looks really fucked up. They're trying to like scavenge and everything, but it's not working out because there's not really animals about and there's not really vegetation about because of like corruption and shit. But then we see that this one woman was pretty much arguing that they should have fucking took their wheels and left their asses to die. And I'm just like, all right, let's see how that works out for you after this situation ensues. As we see that Nori and they're seeing like footprints and everything, and then these not wargs, but like wolf thingies come up to try and like eat them. But of course, the mysterious stranger pops up and does a kind of shockwave with his arm, but it like injures him. But everyone's it's like, thank you for saving us. And then he's pretty much trying to heal it with some kind of magic and icing it over. And the thing is, I didn't get this. I sometimes refresh myself on like certain wikis or whatnot to see kind of like what they try and synopsize or what they kind of think. And I was just like, oh, okay, she's trying to like shake him and see if he like responds. And she stupidly kind of like grabbed at pretty much where his arm was pretty much getting cast over by ice. And then she gets kind of iced up and gets kind of shockwaved out. And I didn't know that she was pretty much seeing stuff in his mind or whatnot, which was kind of weird. I'm like, alright. And she gets blasted off and then she runs off. It's like, oh god, not that kind of thing. It's like, I understand she's young and all that. And she'd be confused of what kind of happened. But he's doing something that you have no knowledge of, and he probably doesn't have as fine of control over either. So he didn't intentionally try and hurt you, and he was trying to figure out what's kind of going on as he pretty much healed his hand. But that's the drama and everything that we're getting on here. And then that is pretty much where that's kind of bit ends. But we also see that people have shown up at his crater looking for him. And these are people that I have no idea who they are or whatnot. I'm like, alright. Cool, we got a mysterious organization looking for this dude. We'll see kind of how that goes. They definitely have a distinct look and distinct outfits, so we'll kind of see what goes on with that. Alright. So, while that's going on, we also see what's happening with the orcs and everything. We see that Adir is, like, in the sun, pretty much talking to this other orc, about like he's like trying to feel the sun for the last time because his objective is to take the sun away and end it and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, god damn, alright. And also burning the dude to be like, I wish you could feel how the sun feels for me, as this could be the last time for me. And I have to make a correction. In the previous episode, it wasn't just like, hey, leave the Watchtower. It's leave the Watchtower and swear fealty to him and pretty much serve them. So it's not just like, hey, if you leave that place, you'll be good to go. It's like, no, you also have to serve these guys depending upon what that goes on. So we see two kind of factions. We see, what's your name? Nope. Nope. That's all of them. Bronwyn. She's, of course, advocating to stay and fight. And then the old dude who had the sword is like, nope, let's just go swear fealty and all that kind of stuff. He tries to get Theo to come with him, but, like, no. Theo's friend and, like, half of the people go and go to swear fealty to Adar. And they go there. He's like, oh, yes, I'm here to swear fealty to Sauron. And then we see that the dude gets angry at that kind of stuff. He's like, no, your bond must be in blood. And then pretty much gives a knife to the dude to kill Theo's friend. It's like, alright, so I guess you're not Sauron? Or are you trying to fight Sauron? Because it kind of goes with kind of Sith rules because of people who want to, like, have and contain and control power, that they're gonna do that kind of shit unless you got a big dick motherfucker with a giant stick going, motherfucker! How Morgoth was, and then of course how Sauron will become. So we don't know who this Adar person is in relation to that, other than some kind of elf-like entity at some point. So we'll see what that kind of entails, and how many people had to fucking die to do this swearing of fealty thing, and what that kind of entails. Bronwyn is, like, dejected. We see that Arondir is teaching Theo to use the bow correctly and everything like that, and it's like, what chance do I have? It's like, you're learning better. It took me like 200 years or so to, like, detail and do all this kind of stuff, man. You're doing this shit at 14. And it's like, oh, interesting. It's kind of cool sharing that perspective and how they just need to fight this kind of thing. And of course, the mother's getting dejected. She wants to go, as we're seeing, as the orcs are pretty much coming at them, and they're trying. Theo does bring up the whole sword thing. It's like, what the fuck is this thing? And evidently it needs to be used with the watchtower or something, because we see this thing and it really wasn't clear in the show. Again, I see something in the wiki being like, it's a gate to something, or like a key thing, even though it's like sacrificing a dude. And I'm like, alright, that needed to be kind of clear. And I think they've got the idea of pretty much like trying to destroy the watchtower or whatnot. So we'll kind of see what goes on with that. I like Arondir's character. It's just this whole thing is kind of weird, in that I don't know exactly what it's attempting to do. Now, I understand that it takes a while to get to certain kind of story beats and whatnot, but this is episode 5 of 8. And I'm just like, alright, whatever. So, let's see. That's kind of where that portion ends. In Numenor, we get a lot of different kind of weird shit. We get Isildur doing his shit with his friends. We get his sister kind of linked up with that. And all this kind of politicking and everything kind of going on. Muriel's trying to see, like, why the fuck Halbrand isn't doing this kind of stuff. And he's just like, I want to do smithing shit. And she's like, no, I'm going to install this king. And her counselor, Pharazôn, we pretty much get him talking to his son, being like, listen, because the son's like, I don't know why you would be doing this. Why are you getting involved in this kind of shit? She's like, well, we set this king up. He's then beholden to us and in our debt, so then we can get shit and everything. It's like, wow, okay, yeah, that's basic, but totally kind of flies with the dude. I do have to say that the costuming and, like, the hair shit for that dude is pretty kind of cool. But other than that, I'm just like, wow, alright, so we'll see kind of how that goes. And his son's like, fuck this shit. Now, granted, I'm not one to be, like, going and hammering in on, like, war at the first chance. Like, I understand that there are differences and costs and everything that you kind of have to do. But Sauron stuff and everything detailing with that, they will come for your asses eventually. And if you just sit there and do nothing, when he comes around, it ain't gonna be pretty. So his son pretty much goes on his own kind of mission to pretty much stop this as much as possible. Galadriel has a nice moment with Halbrand where they're both kind of sharing their traumas, where Halbrand is talking about how he has done all these kind of things and he's not proud and he just kind of wants to forget it and kind of move on and doesn't want any of the king stuff. Again, another kind of person kind of being set up as like, this could be Sauron, Adar could be Sauron, these other people could be Sauron. Let's just see what goes on with that. And Galadriel finally comes to terms about how a lot of her friends could not differentiate her from what she was trying to destroy. It's like, yeah, vengeance had consumed her, and Halbrand calls her out on that, and she's like, listen, we need to fucking stop this shit. And I can't stop. And I'm glad that she, like, at least came clean to someone, as well as kind of herself with that. I'm like, alright, cool, let's see if we can get some movement. And eventually Halbrand does go and decides to go with them. Because we do see that Galadriel is helping Elendil train some of the recruits and everything, as she has a pretty kind of cool sword scene to... Since she's the only one that's really dealt with orcs in a while, she's the best one there to pretty much teach them what's kind of going on with that. And it's kind of cool seeing her pretty much take on like 3 kind of cadets and everything, and they had this kind of like little wager thing. If anybody could score a hit on her, they'd be promoted to lieutenant. And the one dude, the black-haired guy, who's Isildur's friend, he gets a hit on Galadriel, and he gets promoted to lieutenant and everything, and Isildur kind of sees that stuff going on. Of course, we had seen that he was talking with his father. His father's like, I'm not putting you on this expedition because you haven't served Numenor. Like, listing off pretty much mainly more kind of military kind of things, and I'm just thinking, Isildur could have a lot of different kind of ways to serve Numenor. It's not just all these different kind of ways, and especially if you can't find something that kind of sticks with him, that utilizes him effectively while also being of interest to him. I mean, why are you surprised? And of course, I think they're trying to lead that, like, he's being called by, like, the power, not the rings, because the rings aren't made yet, but, like, something is kind of drawing him to pretty much Middle Earth with this kind of stuff. It's like, we'll see, kind of seeding the possibilities of, like, his eventual corruption by the ring and him taking it and everything getting kind of fucked up. And he then, of course, goes to his friend to kind of apologize. He lets him get in 2 good punches, and he's like, no, I'm not bringing you, because fuck you, man. And it's like, alright. So then it kind of spins around a little bit, and we see that the counselor's son pretty much tries to set a ship on fire, and the ship that's pretty much trying to be set on fire is the one that Isildur is trying to stow away in, and they kind of struggle and everything, but then the ship's on fire, the dude kind of gets knocked out, so Isildur kind of takes him back up, and he kind of covers for him, and then his father kind of puts him on the boat as a stable dude. And that was kind of funny, but it's like, alright. Their costuming, though, was pretty good. Always production is on point. Now, granted, it's weird. Like, I need a balance of content going on. Now, granted, I would more lean towards content. However, if it gets to the point that I could see that fans have made better kind of production value armor, then I kind of have a problem and it draws me out of the world. That more goes with the House of Dragons than this one, because this is like good shit, because the expedition kind of soldier's armor, which is kind of different than the Sea Guard's armor, is nice. It's like cool. It really evokes Numenor. And then you see Galadriel pop up. Her armor's fucking awesome. And it fits her. Like, now granted, I understand that it was made for her, but it doesn't seem out of place on her. It fits with her kind of flowiness as an elf. It doesn't seem like it would, like, bog her down or anything. You know what I mean? Like, heavy, bulky, giant fucking shoulder pads out to here, where it's like, I could technically fucking, like, crack off, like, if I was walking down a grocery store aisle, I could pretty much, like, sweep out, like, fucking rows of fucking shelving, just by, like, going, No, it really just fits her character. And then we see Halbrand, which is kind of sits within the same kind of realm as Numenor, but kind of gives him his own style as he's kind of riding out and the expedition is setting forth. Now, we also saw a scene where Miriel was told by her father in a moment of clarity to not go to Middle-earth. However, she was prevailed upon to go to Middle-earth, so we'll kind of see what goes on and how this kind of works out, because it's kind of setting up that she might not come back from this expedition. Right. And Isildur's sister kind of pops up at some points and is like afraid that he would go to Middle-earth. Like, she doesn't really voice her concerns, just that she doesn't want him to go, kind of. So that's pretty much where that sets off and kind of ends off. The really good stuff that I really liked was Elrond and Durin, as we had them at Lindon, and we had this kind of dinner with Gil-galad, where he's like expounding upon trying to like make sure that Durin is comfortable and that they want to retain relations between the dwarves and the elves. And then Durin's coming up with this whole thing about like how the table was mined from this kind of like stone that is used in funeral stuff for the dwarves, and he's like, I'll send the table with you. And Elrond can really kind of get the feel that shit's going nutty, and then that kind of conversation ends, and then he has one with the king where the king pretty much just like, hey, look at the tree, the Eldar are losing their light, we need the Mithril. And then we get pretty much a lore dump what Mithril is. And according to this, there was this light, this elf full of light fighting a Balrog at this tree that had a Cimmeril in it. I had to look that up, and it's some kind of like jewel, like one of three, and it was in this tree, and then lightning struck it during the battle and created the vein of Mithril in a mountain, and that evidently it has the best properties of good and evil, and that its potential light properties will reinvigorate the Eldar to fight the corruption that is going on. Now, I don't know how he would be like, hey, yeah, even though Galadriel might not have been completely correct in Sauron being it, there's some fucked up shit thing going on, and he actually thought that sending her to, of course, the West would have fixed that. It's like, why? Huh? Like, has that happened before? Like, what the fuck? And Elrond is pissed off because it's like, you did send me for ulterior motives, but he does not break his oath. And that's the cool kind of bit. It's like, no. Like, I made an oath to my friend, and I'm not going to break it right now. It's like, oh, so you doom your whole race. It's like, you're being a dick, and you're not fucking coming forward and be like, listen, I understand it's hard to admit weakness, but the thing is, if you're actually allies and actually friends with the dwarves, you go to them and be like, listen, we are losing our light. We're either going to have to leave here, or we're going to die, and our immortal souls will just turn to dust and shit like that. Okay? That's going to present problems for you, because if, heaven forbid, some crazy-ass, dark, corrupting force pops up, and you don't know what's going on, you're going to get screwed, my friend. It's like, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Like, talk about it as adults. It, again, kind of Game of Thronesy kind of shit. So, Elrond goes and actually does have that conversation. He's like, listen, I thought I was coming to you in friendship, but it was an ambition. And I loved the way that Elrond kind of explained it. He's like, I didn't come to you under the correct pretenses. I thought it was in friendship, but no, we need the Mithril because of the light. And he's like, oh shit. He's like, you're the only one. It's funny, Durin's like, say it again. You're the only one who could save us, man. And it's like, alright, cool. And he also brings up that, like, nah, that table ain't shit. It's like, this has been, like, wanting a new table, so I fucking just did it. It's funny seeing the elves kind of, like, take it down and kind of, like, trying to... It's an awkward fucking looking table, but it's just like, if I could get a table out of it. I'm like, you asshole! But it really doesn't affect their friend. It's an interesting peppering of character for him, because he's not trying to fuck over with the elves, but he does have, he does not like that certain elves hold a superior view of themselves over other races, and then tries to kind of get them over, so he just has to watch out with that. But he's like, alright, let's go and do this shit then, to help him. And it's like, I really like, it echoes what we've seen with Legolas and Gimli in The Lord of the Rings, as they go off to then help each other. It's like, alright, cool. But then of course, we know that Celebrimbor is going to be making the rings and how that shit's going to kind of affect and do stuff. And Durin's like, all right, let's go try and convince my father. I'm going to do this shit. It's like, even though they may not succeed in convincing his father, just that he took that step and be like, all right, you're my friend. You came to me. You kept your oath. And you asked me for help. And he's going to do what he can to help. That's cool, and that's the shit that I fucking love to see in shit. Like, when shit's down, and you're honest, and you're having open communication, and your friend's like, alright, yeah. It was just cool to see. And I just really like them doing their shit. And the other pairing of, like, Galadriel and Halbrand can be kind of similar. I'm interested to see how their kind of shit kind of goes on as well. Nori's and the Mysterious Stranger too. Those are kind of like my three kind of big ones, and Arondir just by himself kind of works out. Theo falls into the same kind of traps, though he was better, and Bronwyn is just kind of weird at the moment. She kind of flows along with whatever the plot kind of demands, and we'll kind of have to see how that kind of shakes out. But I fucking loved seeing this stuff with Elrond and Durin, and I can't wait to see kind of what else kind of works out. It's very interesting to see what this is going to what end game kind of scenario we're going to be getting for the season finale, because I did look up and that they've got quite a few other seasons like already ready to kind of go. So they do have plans, so we'll see how this kind of works out. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.